Liability Issues and Disaster, presented by Michelle Miller for Foundations of Emergency Management. This assignment will focus on the liability issues surrounding the Gulf oil spill. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill occurred on April 20, 2010 in the Gulf of Mexico. The spill originated on the BP-operated Macondo project and is considered the largest accidental marine oil spill in U.S. waters on record. An explosion on the drilling platform caused the rig to sink, leading to 11 deaths. The oil continued to leak for 87 days, and almost 5 million barrels of oil were released into the Gulf as a result. Due to the oil spill, local economies were hard hit and tourism took a deep decline in the coastal regions along the Gulf Coast. I can speak personally as to the effects that the Gulf oil spill had on local restaurants and tourism in general. Condos along the Florida Panhandle were experiencing around a 30% cancellation rate, and hours were being cut at most restaurants along the coast. Liability can be defined as a thing for which someone or something is responsible. BP has estimated the combined oil spill damages, including the cleanup, natural resource and economic damages, potential Clean Water Act penalties, and other obligations, to be approximately $41 billion. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill raised numerous issues for policymakers, including the existing oil spill liability and compensation framework to respond to a catastrophic spill. The framework determines three things. First, who is responsible for paying for oil spill cleanup costs and the economic and natural resource damages from an oil spill. Second, how are these costs and damages defined and what is covered? And third, the degree to which and conditions in which the costs and damages are limited or shared by other parties, including general taxpayers. President George H.W. Bush signed into law the Oil Pollution Act of 1990, which consolidated existing federal oil spill laws, expanded authorities within the CWA, and created new provisions regarding oil spill liability and compensation. The Oil Spill Act, or OPA, framework distributes costs of an oil spill between the responsible party or parties and an oil spill liability trust fund. In this case, BP, the responsible party, is liable up to their liability cap, and the trust fund covers costs above liability limits up to a per-incident cap of $1 billion. The OPA creates a cap of $75 million per party for damages beyond the cleanup. Past this cap, the government can use the trust fund on an emergency basis to respond to the disaster and help clean it up. The OPA established a claims process for compensating parties affected by an oil spill. In this case, President Obama and BP announced the creation of the Gulf Coast Claims Facility, an independent claims facility that BP financed with incremental payments eventually totaling $20 billion. Nonetheless, the claims process was largely confusing and consisted of numerous bureaucratic hurdles. I myself had to complete a claims application, which turned into a 9-month process in which I had to constantly supplement my application and justify my lost wages. To conclude, I will discuss some policy changes which have been proposed in the wake of this disaster. First, the caps on the liability written into the Oil Pollution Act should be greatly increased, or perhaps eliminated altogether. Offshore oil rigs capable of harm in the billions of dollars should not be subject to the antiquated caps of the OPA that were created decades ago. Second, the law's claim process should also be improved to ensure sufficient remedies are available over the long haul, as the loss of income for many in the region has continued throughout the coming years. Additionally, we should take into consideration the necessary changes that need to be made in federal regulations of oil drilling. There have been many criticisms of a lack of regulations or even bribery within oil companies and the federal government. This itself has to be fixed if we are to address the liability scheme. The current state of the law is inadequate to deal with disasters of this size. The legal landscape that the victims of this disaster have navigated is complex, outdated, and inconsistent. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill outlined the flaws in the U.S. liability framework when it comes to large-scale disasters. According to BP, response costs have tallied over $10 billion, and its damage claims have far surpassed the $75 million liability limit. Although there were numerous parties which were involved in the incident, BP was the most prominent party in oil spill response and compensation activities. While BP has stepped forward to pay claims past their liability limit, this incident signifies a disconnect between legal obligations and the reality in disaster scenarios. As a local resident along the Gulf Coast at the time of the disaster, I can attest to the state of the local economy after the oil spill and the slow response procedure which ensued. The law must catch up to the cost of such disasters, and companies should face a larger liability when the disasters they can cause lead to such large-scale financial difficulties for individuals and economies alike.